Hey guys, as usual, please like and subscribe if you like the content. Feel free to check out my reviews of Book of Boba Fett, The Mandalorian, and as well as my Star Wars sequel re-edit project. And let's get into this. So, Andor episode 4. So, as I've been talking about up to this point, it's been a really slow crawl. We haven't had a whole lot of things happen really at all, other than to Andor a little bit. He's fugitive, blah blah blah, running around. I'm not going to get super into that. You can check out my previous review of the first 3 episodes. But so here we are early on in the episode. We find out that Andor was fighting a war as a 16-year-old and in all these like perilous conditions. And I'm like, oh wow, that's crazy. And then Buddy there, the one guy who is sort of spearheading this rebellion at this point, who knows everything about him, calls him out and basically says you're a liar. And you find out that Andor was a cook. He lied about how much time he was there in the battle and everything else. So we're finding out that Andor is actually a bit of a goof and he's a bit of a liar. And I don't really get it. I don't really know. He's not even really much of a scoundrel in this sense. It's strange. He's just sort of this guy. I like the Empire meeting. You have another one of these sort of conference rooms, Empire conference rooms. It was really well shot. The head guy in the scene was interesting. Did a really good job. And I'll say this again: the acting in this show is really good. I don't like the storyline and how slow it is and everything else, but the acting and the sets and all that stuff is really very good. But it's good in the sense that there's nothing special. So it was a cool scene, but you look at those old scenes of the conference rooms with Vader and stuff, and he always provided this unknown dynamic that scenes like this kind of need in Star Wars. Like I've been saying all along, and I've said after the first 3 episodes, very generic feeling this show has, and that's why is you don't have that crazy dynamic. Oh, what's this guy gonna do if this happens, or what's this guy gonna do? You're just kind of in a conference room. It's like a mundane meeting, despite the fact that again the acting was good and stuff like that. It's very generic, and I don't even blame the writers here. But it's impossible to create interest at a level of Vader. But where is that dynamic character? We haven't been introduced to one yet of any kind on either side, and so it's just very generic. This is why I say all along the Star Wars doesn't belong on TV. It takes away the hype, and this is sort of an example of that. Despite the fact that again, well shot, really really nice looking, all those types of things. Then this rebel guy that was with Andor shows up at some planet to talk to her leader chick. They look like they're sort of roughneck group of people or whatever. And then she argues with the guy, and I keep saying the guy. His name starts with an L. I don't remember. He's a pretty interesting character in the show, but anyways, and he gets kind of intense with her, and I'm getting the sense that he's leading the rebellion, but I have this feeling that in the long run he's going to be a bad guy. He's sort of his anger issues. It seems to foreshadow that. Maybe I'm wrong, but it does kind of feel like that. And it's kind of like Star Wars, but with added drama, especially the scenes with a lot of dialogue. So it's just there's a lot of dialogue, a lot of talking, and a lot of needless talking, and it just goes on and on and on. So it doesn't feel like Star Wars. Like it's kind of Star Wars, the aesthetic, everything, but it doesn't feel that way. Again, I keep repeating myself, but I'm just saying it's very generic. And then Buddy says bastard, which is again, it's our world language. George never did that. He never brought in our slang and our swearing into Star Wars because that's what separates it. And again, now we're sort of again generic writing in that sense. Then an Imperial officer takes over control of the previous security company. The one that was after him for murdering those 2 dudes, which is a big part of the previous scene with the Imperial meeting. And this is cool and shows how by the time we get to A New Hope, there's just Empire guys everywhere and they're controlling everything. And you don't have these subcontractors, but it's kind of interesting. As soon as the subcontractors make any kind of mistakes, boom, then the Empire just sends in his guys. And Palpatine sends in his guys, and they just sort of it's kind of neat. You're seeing them sort of take over, and I like that. So yeah, failure on one end justifies the expansion of further centralization or control of the Empire. And then again, the scene was cool, but very generic, very TV drama-ish. It just doesn't. There's nothing. I'm still waiting for something really interesting, a very interesting, really cool, different character in this, and it just doesn't exist. Then they show the Empire again, and this new character, some blonde chick that looks super grumpy, resting bitch face, discovers that there was a stolen box code thing, which could lead to where Andor is. It's this Empire ship. I guess maybe it's the equivalent of like a black box in a plane. I'm not really sure, but anyways. And then Buddy, who brought Andor to do the job, the same guy who has the really intense hood put on in the trailer for episode 5, changed. He goes back to his ship, and all of a sudden, everything folds over, and he's got all these new clothes, and he puts on a wig and pretends to be an art dealer, and then he has a meeting with Mon Mothma, and the Empire's all over, so she's escorted in, but then him and his staff act like, they're just going in to look at art, and they distract them so that this guy and Mon Mothma can have this discussion where he's just basically telling her to give him more money. And she's saying it's getting too risky, yada, yada, yada. And again, well done, good acting, aesthetically good, but just generic. And I think the word I would use in this show, why it is not a Star Wars show, at least doesn't feel that way, is lack of adventure. There's no adventure right now. Everything's stagnant. We're just sitting around waiting for something to happen. And this is 4 episodes in now. We're just waiting for something to happen. People say, "Well, it's just you don't like slow stuff." Well, it's not that. It's that Star Wars. That's not what Star Wars ever is. Star Wars was never this slow drag, constant talking Game of Thrones attempt to be Game of Thrones style show. It just never was, and that's kind of what I'm getting from this. And this whole idea of adult Star Wars, like something of a TV drama show. Again, it's antithetical to the entire George Lucas plan. He never wrote like this. You appeal to a young audience while keeping it interesting to the older crowd. That's what you're trying to do, and this is going to end up backfiring in the end. This isn't going to lead to toy sales and things like that, and things that right now Disney probably could use that revenue because they've lost a lot of money on a lot of these Star Wars projects. And then we had a scene where Buddy from security force that failed to capture Andor visits his mom. Just kind of pointless. Sorry about the saw in the background. Somebody's sawing up some wood. And then the girl from the new Andor group heals his blaster wound that did nothing to him at all. It did nothing to ail him. So finally, after, remember he took that blaster shot I was talking about in the 3rd episode. It didn't even fall down, just kept running and shooting. And then she, they're going to have this moment. So she takes his bandage off and, oh, look, there's the blaster wound. And she starts, dabbing it. And you're like, bro, it didn't even affect him. And it's like days ago. They just can't think of any other interesting way to have them come together and have a discussion other than that. It's just, it's again, generic drama show. Until you finally get the sense that Andor might actually do something. It looks like he's going to go with these ragtag people, rebellion people connected to Buddy that yelled and screamed at her and put a wig on, and he's going to go now and they're going to go after this Imperial garrison. Yeah. Oh, credits. So I've watched 4 episodes, and finally there's now a plot line after 4 episodes, and that plot line is Andor now is going to do missions for the startup rebellion. That's literally all that's happened in 4 episodes. That's the entire plot in 4 episodes in over 2 hours. Is he's now finally going to actually go do something. Somebody told me, the same thing's happening in this Rings of Power show that I refused to watch after the 3rd episode. I'm done with it. That took them 4 hours or 6 hours, I guess, of footage to finally have a battle happen. Like, I mean, and even that was mundane apparently. Like, it's just, I don't know what's going on. Like, they're just dragging these shows out, I think, just for ratings. Like now, I'm basically saying, okay, there's going to be 12 episodes of the show in the first season, but right now 4 of them could have been condensed into 1. And if that trend continues, then this is literally a 3-episode show that they've dragged out into 12. And Mandalorian did the same thing. Mandalorian, the entirety of the first 2 seasons could have been done in 6-7 episodes. It would have been way more fun to watch, way more interesting, make them a little bit longer. Would have felt more like Star Wars. But they're dragging it out for money. It's obvious, right? This is what they do. Yeah, and almost nothing happened in a 40-minute episode. Other than Andor agrees to do a job, and Mon Mothma talks about how there are people suspicious of her. That's 40 minutes of that. That's what we got. So, again, to go back to it, the show isn't necessarily bad per se, but it's not good either. It's just super generic, and that's about it. I don't know what else to say. Nothing's happened. So, oh well, I guess we'll see next week if something actually happens and what they do with it. But very pretty to look at. That's about it. Anyways, have a good day. Thanks very much.